Welcome to part 3 of the freeze mode. In this module, we're going to talk about what happens on the level of the mind, what happens on the conscious level, and I call it a narrative story at the level of the mind. So in the previous modules, we've talked about what happens physiologically. So we need to remind ourselves, I need to remind you, because you do need to think about it for long enough until it becomes natural for you to think about all those different layers, so then you can forget. So then you understand that your experience is not only conscious but is also unconscious. So physiologically, what happens? Amygdala is activated. There is mobilization of energy, adrenaline, cortisol in your system, tension in the muscles. Your heart is beating slightly faster. Your breathing is shallow. So the tension can manifest in different places, in the body, in the jaw, in the neck. It's quite random actually. So it doesn't depend on anything in particular, but the tension is present in the body. There is kind of an emergency in the body. Then emotionally, that's fear. Again, it's chemical, adrenaline and cortisol. And we need to remind ourselves about the prefrontal cortex, your executive function. When you have all those abilities, so planning, problem solving, working memory, thinking about 3 things at the same time, small things, right? Organizing your thoughts, organizing your perspective, organizing your sort of zooming out and thinking about things in a context. This is a very useful part of the brain when we are learning, receiving new information. So when there is an emergency in the body, physiologically, then that part, the prefrontal cortex, is offline, is not available. So your thinking may be scattered, fragmented, etc. Another issue is the focus, right? This is where you are able to focus on things and navigate your focus. In the freeze mode, any expression of sympathetic response will make your attention, your focus to be scattered and outside, and it will be very narrow, right? It will be very narrow, and it will be focused on things, your perception will be focused on things that will confirm your state that you're in. And that will become very important. Because when you can't really navigate your thoughts, so it's not up to you. Again, release the shame. Release, it's not your fault. It's actually a physiological state. So when it comes to the mind, the most important thing to remember is that story follows state. What that means for us is that your narrative, the story that you are telling yourself, is an extension of the state that your body is in. When I talk about nervous system, I mean the body. They're equal. So if the body is in emergency, if the body is activated, if the physiology is activated and it's a state of stress, then your thinking will be the same. So the nature of your thinking, the nature of your thoughts will be the same. So it will be scattered, fragmented. So this shows up like 1 second you're thinking about this and the other second you're thinking about completely something else. So there is no flow, right? And that becomes really important. It will be very difficult, close to impossible, to focus, to concentrate. To narrate it in a way, to narrate it in a helpful way. the nature of your thoughts will be scattered, messy, and chaotic. I said scattered here, the thoughts, okay? So it will be very difficult to navigate that. That's the feeling. So this is you wanting to do something, but unable to actually sustain your focus for long enough so you finish your thought and then you are unable to match the action. So that chaos, that scatteredness, it's very difficult to navigate and it's exhausting. So when your body is getting exhausted, you will be mentally exhausted as well. Your psychology is rooted in your physiology. So your psychology will not be grounded, calm, lack of calm. And also that can show up as fogginess. Lack of clarity. Because if you have a jumping focus, scattered focus, then you can't really keep concentrating. It's not sustainable on things that require your nervous system to be in a state when that's actually possible. So again, I want to highlight this. The fact that you cannot concentrate or focus has nothing to do with your potential intelligence, and it's very important to understand this. I want to talk about now the way you see yourself, your self-perception in this state. So this is where we build the idea who we are. This is how we see ourselves. And the way we see ourselves depends on the state we are in, that our nervous system is in. So in this particular state, you're going to be thinking about yourself in a way that reflects the state your nervous system is in. So think about, what do you think about yourself? Normally people would say that I'm lazy, unmotivated. You are basically thinking that you are lacking mental skills. Right? So I'm lacking this. It's impossible. I can't do it. If the inner state is chaotic, then the self-perception is chaotic. Because I bet there have been times in your life, or maybe sometimes they randomly show up, that it's not that random, but it looks random, where you are actually able to be calm, to be rooted and to be grounded, and then things flow, but it's nothing random. That means your nervous system has entered parasympathetic response, or some form of it, maybe after you've done some sport, maybe you have, I don't know, have been in nature and somehow you feel the surge of energy. This is where the stress comes down in the body, and then you feel the release of the energy, creative energy, and usually in those state you make plans, you reach out to people, you create something. It could be, I don't know, you cook, you clean, you doing something for work or for school, whatever. But this is not random. All is an extension of the state of the nervous system. But when your nervous system enters freeze, so it's like disorganized, so your perception of yourself, you will be disorganized and intermittent. Somehow you think, I can do it, I got it, and the other times you're thinking, oh my God, why can't I finish something? So the same way your nervous system is looping in this stress response, your narrative will be also looping. You may be thinking things like, other people have it together, I don't have it in me, right? Because this is like you're trying to do something and you can't really execute. Another word for it is execution paralysis. And you are very ambitious, you have a lot of potential, but your nervous system has not learned to close the loop, to execute, to finish something, right? You probably have the tendency to overwhelm yourself with tasks, to overwhelm yourself with plans, to-do lists. You think it comes from forcing yourself, right? So you think, oh, if I try hard enough, so trying harder, disciplining yourself, forcing yourself into something that your nervous system is unable to do. So it's like working against the body. That's why it's so exhausting, because your mind, your socialized mind, your roles, your task, what do I need to be doing, what do I need to be saying, etc. If you can't execute, that is like inner conflict. That creates inner conflict. You're so mentally exhausted that you keep giving up. Again, not your fault. You keep blaming yourself. What is wrong with me, right? Things you think about yourself. So you keep asking the wrong questions. And on the outside, everyone, almost everyone, looks like they have it together. But you don't know what goes on inside of people, inside their minds, inside the nervous system, their bodies. So think about, how do you cope? Usually they're very frustrating questions. And they're loopy questions. Again, the style of thinking will be also loopy. So you will be circulating. You will be going on the roundabout constantly, the same thing. Why I can't do it. I must be too lazy. There must be something wrong with me, etc., etc. And it shows up everywhere, right? We're going to talk about behaviors in the next module. So your sense of self-perception, your sense of self becomes very fragile, it's very exhausting. It's exhausting and it's overwhelming to be thinking about yourself in a demeaning way. So then you will disassociate in your mind. That's a sort of giving up. You will detach. You will avoid facing yourself because it feels like very hard work. Okay, so you can psychologically detach. And you will want to escape into something in your mind. So maybe you will be dreaming a lot, or maybe you will be gaming a lot, or maybe you will be psychologically detaching and disassociating. You'll have some alternative realm, let's call it, some alternative reality in which when you engage and focus on that reality, it just becomes easier to be, right? It's a relief. It's a mental relief because it shouldn't be this hard to just exist and operate in this state. It is exhausting. That's the adrenaline. It's physical, mental, psychological, and emotional exhaustion. If you're a very ambitious person, and everyone is ambitious, everyone has some kind of gift that they're trying to bring into the world and contribute. So that becomes like you stop fighting. So that's the sort of mental numbness. So it may look like, I don't care, I'm fed up, being fed up psychologically. That's being fed up of trying. You know, it's not a very comfortable, inspiring state of being where you're trying to do something and nothing is working. And sometimes it's about simple things, because your environment will reflect that, right? So the chaos internally will be showing up externally. I want you to understand that that is happening outside, below your awareness. Your body is an unconscious mind, and it has agenda on its own. And now, you know, your consciousness is working at all times, whether you are aware of it or not. So things that you're trying to do, the way you're trying to be, if it's exhausting, then I want to keep talking about the mental state. And in that exhaustion, the state you are in becomes the lens through which you look at the world, right? And that will color the emotional state, that will color with flavor your perspective on life. So just as 10 minutes ago we started talking about your self-perception, now we're going to talk about your perspective on life in general, right? So life is, the world is. To me, ADHD is unexpressed creativity. To me, I believe deeply that, and this is the people that I've worked with, is that this is like a 5D brain trying to survive in a 3D reality. What that means is human experience is very complex, and you're probably interested in a lot of things, and then you are being put into the box. You are being told that there is a one way of doing things. You are being told that there is right and wrong. You are being told that, you know, our world incentivizes being trained well. And you could have that feeling in your body, in yourself. You can have that sense of, you know, if this is the right way and I can't do it, then I'm wrong. So you might have this feeling, this sense that the world is against you, because everyone is against you. So your potential is not being expressed. You're probably interested in a lot of things, and if you had it your way, your unique way, and everyone has their own unique way, your own unique frequency on which you are creative, on which you are, when you can be authentic, then things fall into place. That's the parasympathetic response. So again, blaming yourself about the reality, which you have this amazing brain, you have a Porsche, and yeah, nervous system, your body is like having this amazing technology, and your consciousness is the best technology there is. And yet they're trying to put you in a box and force you to do things that you can't really relate to, you don't find interesting, or the way they're being done is really boring to you. All the systems are set up in a way that they're not really in alignment with who people are deep down on the sort of soul level, on the authentic level. It's all about forcing some kind of framework, some kind of belief system, some kind of very rigid way of doing things onto consciousness that is very creative, if it's very multidimensional. So I want you to shift that understanding within yourself that it's not your fault, and this has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the outside world and the reality that is not really serving humans. And this is why we are where we are. So life will be overwhelming for you. complex in a way that you don't understand. Reality is complex, but reality is very subjective. The systems are set up in a way that we are being told that the world works in a particular way without taking into consideration that your consciousness is very unique and you filtering the world. The world doesn't filter you. So it could be overwhelming, and it could be, it's a very difficult feeling. It's like forcing yourself and pushing harder and trying harder is very difficult and exhausting. So complex in a sense that I don't understand it, right? If you feel internal chaos, you will want to be around people who are similar. Your nervous system works on the principle of familiarity. So you will feel very well around people who are, let's say, chaotic, disorganized, etc. Right? This is why we like hanging out with like-minded people like us. And it will serve you when you're young. There's nothing wrong with that. But then when life requires you to become more grounded and rooted, when you need to start ignoring certain things and focusing on things that are important to you, then that will create friction and even deeper inner conflict. You will have a sense that the reality is coming at you and it doesn't serve you, and that's very natural in this state. So it's intermittent. You will feel sort of torn inside your mind. I'm talking about the mind now, right? I'm going to say that again, inner conflict. So not only your sense of self will be fractured and it will be getting weaker and weaker, but also that sort of life is. What is life about? You will have, again, it will be very loopy, right? It must be me. And if I haven't said it enough, I'm going to say it again. This is all unexpressed creativity. There is a zone of genius for you that you haven't yet discovered. But think about, what did you like doing in childhood? If you had it your way, what would you be doing? So in an ideal reality, what would you be doing? So I'm talking about things that when you used to do them, or you sometimes do them, time disappears. This has nothing about being productive or having any particular outcome. It's a state of being. It's a way in which your nervous system and your consciousness enters parasympathetic response, and it feels connected with the outside world. And that could be something in nature, and this is what people are currently deprived of. This could be, fixing bikes, fishing, going into the woods, writing, knitting, gardening, whatever that is, where you're very engaged in the process without focusing on any particular outcome. So that's an open question to you, to maybe you write it down and keep wondering, because that's questions are like keys, questions are like anchors, and this is what we're going to be moving towards. That physically you need to find anchors, mentally you need to find anchors, and then we're going to talk about actions and behaviors which should be anchoring for you. So life it's very difficult to then ignore certain things, because if your perception is everywhere and you see this everywhere and you're not anchored and grounded, then that becomes very difficult and exhausting. And then your understanding of the world, right? It's overwhelming not to be feeling part of the world. It's overwhelming and sort of, it feels very separating. It feels like you are exiled, you don't belong. apart from the people that think like you and are like you, right? And now people. What do you think about people? It feels very invalidating not to be understood. If you want to be understood, release that from yourself. We're not here to be understood, we're here to understand ourselves. And that's what you're doing. That's part of the process. But people will be feeling to you like they don't understand you, and it will be very sort of invalidating. All of us are looking for the same thing. We're looking to be validated. We're looking to be understood. So if we don't get that, that becomes, again, it's like a feedback loop. It's like, if no one understands me, then there is something wrong with me. And I want you to start cultivating this thing where, this particular place, that no one is here to understand you the same way you don't have to understand others. This idea that we need to understand each other and we have to be the same, and unless we're the same, we can't get on, it's a problematic idea. So I want you to start removing and releasing yourself from this particular prison. It feels invalidating, and stop wanting to be understood. Okay? I'm going to be talking about actions and behaviors and then the protocols in a minute in the next module. But for now, I want you to start thinking about decluttering your mind, because at the moment, your mind is very cluttered with those loops, with those beliefs, with those thoughts, right? So the thoughts are looping constantly about the same thing. What is wrong with me? What is wrong with the world? What is wrong with the people? What is wrong? And it's very exhausting. So you need to start decluttering your mind. I always encourage people to write, because your mind can't close the loop, because your body can't close the loop, so your mind can't close the loop. So this is a mental, psychological technique, which I called one thing at a time. You need to anchor yourself with questions, right? And we're going to talk about intention. Intention is like focus attention. You need to literally grab the spotlight of your attention, which is at the moment everywhere. Hopefully it's on me and what I'm talking about. But every day you need to have an intention, and it has to be one intention. What do you want your day to look like? When you're trying to organize yourself, you need to ask the mind, not something from the outside. So this is a skill you're learning. So every day, I don't know if you're starting or if you've done any work on yourself, but intention and focusing your attention on one day at a time. If that looks too overwhelming for you, divide your day in 3-hour blocks. In the morning, have your coffee, whatever, get up, whatever you're doing, and intention of the day. If it's too much, then 3-hour block. What's your intention? What do you intend to do? You are nudging your brain and you are focusing your brain. You are focusing your mind. So you are anchoring your mind. You are anchoring your mental energy onto this particular thing. Could be very, very simple. And one thing at a time, right? So this is a mental exercise where you need to teach your mind to close the loop. How do you close the loop? You're doing something when you have the beginning and you have the end. All the scrolling, Netflix, gaming, things like they don't have the very clear anchor of the end that you can actually then move on from. Because it's like your nervous system cannot move on from things if they don't have the end. So it can be very simple things like tidying your bedroom, washing the dishes, writing 3 emails. If you have a lot of things to do, then you set an alarm 20 minutes. And this is how that's the dopamine. It will actually, you need to attach the dopamine to closing the loop of very simple things. This is how you train your nervous system on a mental level, right? We're going to talk about behaviors, but I'm just mentioning that this needs to happen on the mental level. Intention, it's a focus attention. So you're creating an image. You're putting an image of something ending, something finished. And then you're nudging your brain, you're visualizing, right? You're imagining doing that thing, and then you're actually acting out on it. So you're acting the intention out. And then once you master those little things, you can then increase about big things. Even if you're writing an essay, doing a project, it's always breaking down that thing into small assignments. Because when you're thinking about everything up front, it's very overwhelming and we give up because it's exhausting. Intention is all about focusing when you're walking, focusing on the next step or on the next 5 minutes. It could be also physical, which we're going to get to. You need to harness that intention. You need to harness your attention and take one day at the time and one thing at the time. So when you're doing a to-do list, don't do 25 items. You need to do to-do lists to train your nervous system. It's training. You're learning, you're cultivating. And then once you practice that enough in your mind, you will actually build confidence and self-esteem. This is how things are done. By dissecting a very long thing into small pieces and then looking just at the next step, and concentrating and constantly training your attention and your focus and reminding yourself and beginning again and reminding yourself and beginning again. This is how competence is being built. You're going to build a skill and your dopamine will be satisfied, your dopamine system, and you're going to be very happy with yourself. Do not underestimate the power of those acts where your dopamine can be satisfied. Dopamine is all about pursuit. We have attached it to things that never end. So that's why it's exhausting to be scrolling, to be watching Netflix, right? You think it's good, but it's not. And once the dopamine attaches to small things and you understand that it's all about execution, because you remember you've got execution paralysis, so this is how to break the pattern. This is how to break the loop. Basically, intention is all about breaking the loop, puncturing the loop. I'll see you in the next module.